Not an ideal spot to lose it.
That guy on the ground? Well, that's me. Let me tell you how I got there. A couple years ago, I went looking for a truck for my son. I scoured the web, and there it was.
Oh, yes.
This 1997 Chevy S10.
Let's see what they want.
After a few calls and picture exchanges, the deal was made for $1,700. A few weeks and an extra $600 to have a transported truck arrive. My wife was pissed off. It was a piece of crap. Steering, transmission, exhaust, springs, shocks, rear differential, quarter panels, tail lights, headlights, turn signal indicators, electrical, and the list just went on and on and on. And that's how we started the 1997 Chevy S10 project. So let's get to work. In this week's episode, we're going to focus on the steering of our two-wheel drive pickup. Now, I've driven this thing around town, and I got to admit, there's a lot of play in the steering. And when you get it on the highway, it gets even worse. So we need to keep the cost down, and we need to get this fixed as quick as possible. Place. I'm going to unlock the steering. It's got a ton of place. Wow. To do this, we're looking at how the steering works. So it's kind of hard to see, but here's our, right here is our steering column. It's coming through the firewall. It comes all the way down there where there's a universal joint and a sleeve. We also have, it's power steering. So here's a power steering pump and a reservoir that goes down and connects to the power steering gearbox. Outside that steering gearbox, there's some workings in there, and it comes right into the pitman arm, which travels down and connects to the center link. And that center link then also connects to the idler arm. Idler arm connects to the frame of the truck right here. That idler arm keeps the center link nice and level when you're steering left and right. Off of the center link, we have an adjustment arm. We have the tie rope. Our problem here is we've got too much play. We're fine on the pitman arm. We're okay with the idler arm. Center link's good. Our joints are good and everything. So to have that much play, that brings us back to the steering gearbox. So we're going to go to U-Pull-It. We're going to see if we can find a damaged truck, and we're going to take one off that and see if that fixes the problem. I believe I saw a steering gearbox sitting in one of those trucks, and so we're heading up there right now, and we're going to see if we can find it. Okay, you can't see this, but way up there is where we came in at, and we walked all the way down here. This is Texas. It's hot. It's miserable. You look around. This looks like the breeding grounds for snakes. So what you don't want to do is that. Here's a possible candidate. This is a, what is this, a 2000? Mm-hmm. This is a 2000 S10. Collar here, it's kind of a tension collar around the steering column, or around the UV joint that connects to the steering column. So what we're going to do is we're just going to loosen that up. Okay, so we're going to start with these and see what gets us. And I'm watching for snakes right now because I sure am not interested in getting on that. Got all the bolts out of it. We're about to pull it out. You say that the bolts are a lot better, and the good news is there's the steering. The power steering fluid is in here, so that looks a lot better. So we're gonna pull on this and see if we can get this thing off. And it might not want to come off that easily. Well,
Didn't I just tell you not to jerk on it?
It looks like it's in pretty good condition. I mean, there's some grime up in here, in there, but you know, that can be cleaned up. I'm gonna go up here. I'm hoping I can get this for 50 bucks, maybe 65 at the top end. We're gonna see. If he tries to charge me $100, I don't care how much time I spend in here. We're walking. I'll go online. I'll get a rebuilt one, and I'll guarantee that's gonna work. Thanks. So we just got a really cool deal. We're gonna head over to the house. So we just left U-Pull-It. I got a great deal on that steering gearbox. It only cost me $45, which is huge. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna head back over to the house, and we're gonna clean this thing up, see if we can get that pitman arm off. And now it's time for a quick how-to for the day. Now, pulling a steering gearbox is not that hard. There are 3 bolts that hold the steering gearbox in place against the frame. You want to pull these out last, and you can do that with a 3/4 inch socket wrench. That way you don't put any undue stress on the steering column or on the pitman arm. Using a 1/2 inch wrench, you can remove the supply and return lines for the power steering pump. It's really important that you remember the order in which they were connected, so when you put the new steering gearbox in, you can attach the supply and return line to the correct connection. Then at the top of the gearbox is where the steering column is held in place with a pinch collar. All you need is an 11mm socket to loosen up the pinch collar, and then you can back out the steering column. And then there's the pitman arm. You can remove it off the base of the gearbox with an 18mm socket and an impact wrench. You can also remove it off the knuckle joint using a 3/4 inch socket, and the thing about that one is it's a tapered bolt, so it's going to take a solid blow from a hammer to loosen the connection. And there you go. I told you it wouldn't be so bad. That's your how-to tip for the day. Okay, so we've got our new gearbox. We're going to clean it up. We're going to pull off the pitman arm. All right, here we go. Well, that didn't really go the way I'd planned it to. I really only wanted to mess with the gearbox. I didn't really want to mess with the linkage, and now it looks like I'm going to be messing with the linkage, which makes me nervous. I need to get the old gearbox off the truck before it gets too late, so wish me luck. Then we're going to disconnect the center link, and then we're going to take the 3 bolts out of the frame, and that baby should fall right out. That's scary, actually. And it fell. On the pitman arm, and the center link damaged the vault, so when I put the pitman arm back on the center link from the new gearbox, yeah, I couldn't get the bolt to thread. Well, it's raining, and I started this on Saturday, worked on it Sunday. Yeah, what's today? Oh yeah, today's Thursday. Wow. It's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, but you know, we're working through it. I had to go and buy a new center link, which cost me $60, $52, something like that. That means I got to take tie rods off. I got to take the idler arm off. That's a lot of freaking work. I wasn't real happy about that. Okay, so I screwed up. No time to cry. The parts are here. I got to get this truck back on the road. So the first thing we're going to do is get it up in the air and get that idler arm off. So you can see right down there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull off those bolts on the idler arm. Alright, so we got the bolts off the frame. Now we're going to move on to the center link. A little bit of tension. Alright. Yay! Alright. you guys heard it or not. But a little bit of brute force never hurt anything, right?
We've got the, I got the center link off, got the idler arm off, got the new parts in. We're gonna go get those. We're gonna put those on. I've already got the new gearbox in place, so it's ready to go.
We'll slide in this one. We're gonna slide this guy in over here. Oh, there we go. Moving the wheel a little bit. Yeah, we're just getting this thing started. There we go. Up in there. Here's our two tie rods coming in. Our pitman arm coming down. That's our idler arm coming down.
Okay, so we just finished torquing up the bolts on the truck, and now what we need to do is put some power steering fluid in it, flush the system, and we're getting pretty close. You know, we take the truck for a drive. Once you top off the power steering fluid, you want to leave the cap off, turn the wheel left and right until you get all the air out of the system. And you'll notice that because little air bubbles start coming out of the reservoir.
So as we go back and forth, you go all the way. So I'm going to go all the way, and I mean I'm turning that with one finger. That means it's well lubricated, and what you're doing is you're getting that power steering fluid in all the nooks and crannies inside there. And I'm going to show you something. There's your play. All right, we had 2.5 inches of play, and in this new one we got about a ½ inch. All right, so once you've got all the power steering the fluids all through the system, you check for leaks. I don't see any leaks, so we're good. And then you go ahead and you notice the level dropped way down. It's because now we got it through the whole system. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna top this thing off. And
And now we're going to grease the joints where the pitman arm and the idler arm come down and connect to the center link. We're going to put some grease up inside those. There's a little nipple that you have to put in the bottom of those ball joints, and we'll fill those up.
they say don't try and keep this clean because that leads to rusting parts. So put a lot of this lubrication everywhere. Don't be afraid to get it on things. Put that dump up in there.
We're gonna drain the power steering fluid out of there because there's about a ½ quart inside the power steering pump itself. It's nasty stuff, so you know we're gonna be good with that. We're gonna get that out of there. We're gonna go manual pump. We're gonna pull that, and then I've got some really high quality stop leak Valvoline power steering fluid.
What we're doing now is we're gonna run this for a minute, let it cycle through the system, and see if we got all the bad fluid out of there. So let's take this off, and I want to take a look and see what it looks like now. It's looking better. Alright, I just ran it again, and I'm going to check it again, see what the color is, and that is much better. Last night, when we were wrapping this up, or trying to wrap this up, the fluid was just foam. One of the problems we ran into, when I turned it on, it was making this racket in here. The amount of dirt and grime that came out of this reservoir was crazy. The other noise it was making, it had been making up about a week before we started this project. There was this knocking sound, or a slight knocking sound. Surprisingly, once I drained the reservoir and I drained the pump of all the fluid that was in it, that knocking seems to have gone away. We'll find out when we actually drive it. I'm going to drain this. I'm going to put the other stuff in. It's got the stop leak. And then it's a matter of taking it for a test drive. Alright, so I flushed that 3 times. Now we're going to put in the Max Life Valvoline power steering fluid. Well, after a week of stress, this thing is finished. We were able to get all our parts for about $105, and this truck drives truer than it did the day it came off the assembly line. Alright, well, maybe not that true. That's one down, but there's still a lot of work to be done. So be sure to watch next time as we continue to tackle our 97S10 issues list. Coming back to my house, we're just trying to get the sun to hit me right so I can record.
And it's not doing so.
Now I'm going to turn around and go back, and we're going to loop back around and do that again.
It's okay right now. It's getting better.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Well, that's good on your side.
Alright, we'll try it again. So we just left U-Puller. Got a great deal on the steering gearbox, $45. Exactly what I was looking to do. Now we're going to head back to the shop. I thought that was a cop. Hello, Mr. Officer. Okay. So we just left U-Puller. Got a great deal on the steering gearbox. Only cost me $45, which is huge. We're in over our head in cost on this truck. Got to keep out all the maintenance down as best we can. What we're going to do now is we're going to take the gearbox, head back over to the shop.
What the hell, man? Subscribe already.
Exactly. What I just said. Guys, stop.